Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Previously on The Timeline.
When we get to 500 main feed episodes, I will record an a cappella version of the theme music, personally. The Timeline is a MeWire podcast. Na 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 na. Synths.
Welcome to The Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast, and wow, episode 500. Sam, first of all, great job on the theme song. And how are you doing?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I think it was that sounded exactly the same as the normal theme music, if you ask me. I'm doing great today, man. I mean, we're in like a quiet portion of the off season, but in a way that's the perfect time for this random number to have landed of our 500th main feed episode.
Yeah.
So, who'd have thought? Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
That we'd have made it this far, you know?
It worked out for us, and for those listening, yeah, this is going to be a bit of a meta podcast. We're going to talk about the history of the podcast a little bit. We're going to draft an all-time team. Well, teams to kind of be against each other, Sam and I, from all the players that have played on the Phoenix Suns in our time recording this podcast, and then we'll talk about some submitted favorite moments from people who listen to this podcast that we got on our Discord. It worked out. You're right. It worked out calendar-wise for us. The fact that we are able to have this episode that is somewhat of a milestone for us in a time of the off season that there's not much going on. Really no news to talk about.
So we could force it upon the audience.
Yeah.
As opposed to if we tried to do this in, April or March or something.
If it was during the playoffs or something, that would be a disaster. We'd have to have
yeah, for sure.
extra episodes. Let me ask you this, and we'll talk a little bit about the history of the podcast because I think there's probably quite a few listeners that have never heard that story. But episode 500, what are your first reaction to us getting to 500? And we're just, by the way, talking about 500 episodes of the main feed, 500 episodes that everyone can listen to.
Yeah, so, you can give all the details of the story if you want, but, we've been doing the podcast for 8 years now. We have known each other in kind of this online relationship sort of way for 13 years, I want to say. It was like 2013 was when I made my Reddit account. We met on Reddit. We didn't meet in real life until
2021, I believe.
2021. We actually caused COVID, the two of us meeting. No,
we caused them to make the NBA Finals. You came that season, and then they made the Finals, and that was your first
Yeah, trip. So it was a long time before we even met in real life. I mean, honestly, I don't want to be too corny about it, but I do have to pinch myself sometimes because, the fact that this is this thing that we started at the time, I was still in college when we started the podcast, and to be totally honest with you, it was sort of just this thing that was going to pass some time for me. We started during the summer. I was kind of bored. I never had any idea that we were still going to be doing this basically 10 years later. So I'm really grateful for so many reasons. I'm grateful that it was you who reached out to me about starting this thing, that we've been so on the same page about everything for close to 10 years now. And then of course I'm grateful for our audience who just all the time, I'm not trying to glaze anyone. I truly believe that we have an amazing audience given the state of the internet in 2026, that the types of people who listen to our podcast and want to engage with us about the ideas, even when they disagree with us, is just, I think, so so incredible.
It really is, yeah, and really, the way it started, I think we should talk about that, and then we'll just kind of talk about our time in the podcast and just our thoughts on what has changed. But yeah, there was just a time where the Phoenix Suns Reddit was maybe 1,000 people, maybe, and really like active posters 100, you know, and those people were just interacting constantly, and it was a time when the Suns were really bad. You know, you and I were in there in the trenches writing 500-word essays on, you know, Marcus Morris and stuff like that on the Reddit and interacting regularly. And, you know, there were, I think there was maybe one Suns podcast, or maybe there was more than one that I just didn't know about at the time. But I just remember the way that you and I talked about basketball online at that time. I felt that there was no one talking about it the way that we liked to talk about it, as far as in Suns media at that time, which was 8 years ago. And so, you know, I had done podcasts before. I had done a music podcast. I had done radio before. You had done radio before, which is just coincidental. And I just reached out to you and I said, hey, do you think you would want to start a podcast? And you said yes, which I was surprised at. We had to figure out the technology in order to do it. It took us a few months to really nail down whether or not we actually wanted to do it. And it was one of those things where, I don't know, there was sort of zero expectations to make any money. First of all, like, we didn't expect it to be like a side job, which has kind of become somewhat of a side job for us. But also, like, no expectations of how long we were going to do it. You know, it could have just been 10 episodes and we quit. You know, it could have been one full season and then it never happened again. But once we figured it out, our very first episode was the day after DeAndre Ayton was drafted. For those who are trying to put a sort of timestamp on this, the podcast, for those who don't know, maybe there are some who don't know this. It's named The Timeline because that's what Suns fans used to say at the time, because it's a phrase that Ryan McDonough, the general manager of the Suns at the time that we started this podcast, would say regularly about building this team to be on the same timeline, essentially to skip over the Warriors being a dynasty and build a good team for after the Warriors would start to become worse, which I guess did kind of play out in a way.
Kind of happened, just not with Ryan McDonough there, or because of anything that Ryan McDonough himself did.
Well, you know,
he did draft Devin Booker.
He drafted the big three of that team, if you will. But yeah, and so we started the podcast at that time. I think there probably are people listening to this episode right now. Maybe not many of them, but there probably are people listening to this podcast right now that listened to that very first episode because of our involvement on Reddit, and we of course promoted it on the one place that we were active. We didn't even have Twitter accounts at the time. It's funny to think about that now, Sam. And then of course we started our Twitter accounts later to use it to promote the podcast, and we're still active, you know, on Twitter. I still lurk on the Reddit constantly. We're no longer mods. I'm no longer. Are you a mod? You're not a mod anymore.
We're not.
Right?
No,
yeah,
we're not
we were
mods.
I guess we should say that we were mods on the Reddit too.
We gave up our status as mods several years ago because we weren't doing any of the modding work on our Suns community.
They actually had to pry it out of my cold dead fingers. I didn't
But
choose.
I
didn't choose that. They took it away from me.
I am still on our Suns constantly, just to, you know, I'm not commenting a ton, but I'm just like, it's still a great place. We should talk a little bit about like kind of how the internet has changed in 10 years, not just, you know, the state of podcasting and all that, but it's still a great place to get kind of the heartbeat of how the community is feeling. There's a certain type of person who uses all of these various types of social media. There's a certain type of Suns fan that uses Reddit. There's a certain type of Suns fan that uses Twitter. There's a certain type of Suns fan that uses Facebook.
Yeah.
We promoted ourselves on
those freaks in our Discord.
we promoted our podcast on Facebook for, I want to say, the first year, and then gave up on that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot has changed. I'm curious, like, if in a way I don't want to talk ourselves up too much as some success story, because it is at the end of the day this sort of niche podcast. But
yeah, it's almost more of a miracle than it is a success. It's just
something I do think
happened.
about is for people who want to produce content on the internet, start producing content on the internet today versus 10 years ago. The challenges of that compared to what we had, and you know, we had to get lucky to find any sort of audience, but the challenges I think are enormous today compared to even 10 years ago.
Well, the competition is a lot more.
Because there is a saturation of competition with human voices, but frankly, because there is a saturation of competition with non-human voices. I mean, you know, it's not everyone, but the internet is, in the last 10 years, astroturfing, botting, like all of this stuff is noticeable to me. And I think if you're a citizen of the internet, just noticeable to you now in a way that it just did not exist to that extent 10 years ago. So that's a huge challenge. The other thing is just the rise of the bad faith actor on the internet. I think is a massive thing that has occurred in particularly the last 10 years. Because as social media went algorithmic, people realized that the way to increase their views on social media, the way to increase especially their engagement on social media, was to enrage people. And, you know, like that's not an entirely new concept. You know, Stephen A. and Skip were doing it on First Take on cable TV before like any of the internet podcasters figured it out. But I think what's so difficult about just starting out today is how do you find an audience that's not just like you're prodding them with like a cattle fork all the time and just like trying to enrage them, right? We often talk about, and people have asked us, like, you know, why don't we convert to a video podcast? We're kind of still doing things in an old way. Mike and I have talked about the fact that we probably could expand our audience, or at the very least, continue to expand our social media presence if we just took the most inflammatory 60-second clip of what we say on every episode.
Usually what you say, to be fair.
And
but.
not always. Sometimes it's you.
Yeah.
But if we just took that and did the look, I'm sorry to use names, but did like the Dan Bickley route, right? And just posted it to social media and had all of these people flooding into the comments to tell us, you know, that we're idiots. And we would get more social media engagement. We would get maybe more listeners, probably not, but maybe.
Yeah, but people would be listening for the wrong reasons, I think. You know, like watching the video to clip rage bait of us, probably.
Right. I think, you know, we've had that conversation before of what if we did that. And then ultimately we decided, A, what does that do for the Suns community? What does it do for discourse? It's against the spirit of the discourse that we were trying to have when we started this podcast in the first place. And B, what does it do for us? What does it do for you if you're a creator, right? I want to keep this conversation focused a little bit on, like, if you're trying to put out content on the internet in 2026, you always have to get lucky because of the extent of oversaturation in the market. But also, I think people are tired of bad faith actors. You can get cheap engagement by just like yelling about a bunch of shit and like giving off your hot take and then posting your hot take to social media. But the way you build a lasting audience is by being authentic. Obviously, people are going to listen to us. They're going to disagree with things that we say all the time.
Yeah.
But the thing that I've always tried to hold myself to is that when people are hearing a take on the Suns from me, they can trust that it's me being my authentic self.
Yeah.
That there's no one else out there inside the Suns organization or out who is influencing what I believe.
That's right.
And so I don't know. I guess if I have any like advice for whatever that's worth, probably not much, is just I think authenticity is at such a premium on the internet in 2026. And if you're posting to the internet, it should be because you really want to share what you truly believe with a community of people out there.
Yeah. And beyond that, I think the hardest part is consistency. It's just doing it every week and continuing to make content constantly. That's the part. I mean, that's what got us to 500 episodes is that we just didn't stop making content. I think that can be the thing that can be the most discouraging early on. Frankly, for like a good 6-7 months, we had no idea how many people were listening to these episodes. Like just zero idea. And, you know, but we just kept doing it anyway because we were learning. We were getting better, I like to think, and figuring out what we wanted this to be long term. We did start it out with the intention of I mean, frankly, what it kind of is, right? Do you think we ever got off of what the vision of it was at the beginning? Because I told you at the beginning, I want something that is upbeat, fun, and has like some sort of emphasis on analysis and statistics that we understand, while not being boring. And
without being entirely bogged down by the analytics. Yeah, I understand. It's hard to get that balance right, because everyone is going to have a different idea of what that balance should be. But yeah, in theory, I think our idea at the start was we're going to bring some level of analytical of analysis to this, while also not just talking about the Darko and the EPM and the Vorps and Schnorps, as Zach Lowe would say.
Funny
all
enough,
the time.
I remember telling you I almost want it to feel more like sports radio than I want it to feel like a podcast, which is something that we actually tried at the beginning. That, I guess, in some ways we've gotten a little away from. We definitely are more of a podcast, but podcasts, of course, in those 8 years, over 8 years, we're going on 9, have changed, and the way that people produce content has changed pretty dramatically. And for us, not really. What are, over those 500 episodes, what are the basketball moments that you think of first? I mean, the obvious one, of course, is, it started with DeAndre Ayton being drafted, which obviously I think the very first episode was called A New Hope. Of course, a Star Wars reference. I snuck it in there immediately. But the idea was, this is a new era for the Suns. They're drafting the number 1 overall pick. Devin Booker is entering his prime soon. We're going to see them trying to compete, which we were right about that. Didn't happen right away, but it did happen eventually. Making the NBA Finals, the Valley-oop, I think, are obvious ones. The Chris Paul trade, I think, was a big moment. The Kevin Durant trade.
The Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal trades, huge moments just in terms of like the excitement was palpable.
What else sticks out in your mind over that time?
I think outside of those obvious like basketball moments, for me, it's like the micro moments of getting to experience things with the community. We did playback streams for a number of years until the platform died due to copyright infringement issues that they couldn't kind of get out from under, which we kind of, I think, always understood was possible.
I just remember telling Sam, I can't believe this is legal. I don't know, but I'm going to do this as long as they let us do this. I can't believe this is even allowed.
But, like watching that Cam Johnson game winner with people, just a room full of Suns fans, all digital, and yet you could feel the excitement, like micro moments like that. All of the Devin Booker game winners, of which there's probably a dozen at this point in the... that's not true. Some of Devin Booker's game winners were pre-podcast. Yeah, he had a decent amount in like 2016, 2017. But at least a handful of them are...
Yeah, you were at one in person.
In the time when we were doing the podcast, the Knicks game was obviously my personal favorite because I was there. Just micro moments, I think of the hustle players. And we could talk about that too. Like Jordan Goodwin's the most recent example.
Yeah, I love him.
Josh Okogie. Yeah. I think of players like Josh Okogie blocking a guy on one end, like one-handed, and then going end to end for a poster dunk on the other. And like, I don't remember if that particular moment was on a stream or not, but I think about those are the moments that made me most excited to talk about when we got to the podcast afterwards. And there have been a million players like that over the past 6 years. We could draft, for the next segment, we could draft just our favorite hustle players if we wanted to. But yeah, it's the micro moments that make it for me.
There's a couple Cam Johnson dunks that stand out in my mind over that time, that were really exciting and really fun. The Valley-oop I mentioned is one of the big ones. Let me just read. I'm going to read to you the top 10 in minutes played in the first season we covered. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
This is total minutes played. Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. Good. Josh Jackson. TJ Warren. A lot of minutes on this podcast talking about TJ Warren.
Can I just say, I was talking to my friend and former roommate who I lived with for several years, also a Suns fan, yesterday, about the fact that we were about to record our 500th episode. And he said, man, one of his favorite moments that he can remember is from our first season of a podcast, the podcast together, where he said it was you who was talking about Josh Jackson and just said very casually, Josh Jackson, who hotboxed an infant and then continued on whatever analysis it was. But that was 10 years later. Those are the sorts of things that stand out in certain people's minds. It became a vocal stim for him of sorts.
It's actually a great example of the tone of our coverage of this team over the course of our time doing this podcast, because that is how we talk about the Suns. Josh Jackson, TJ Warren, Jamal Crawford, Rashawn Holmes, whose mother joined us on this podcast, Kelly Oubre Jr., DeAnthony Melton, Eli Okobo, and then let me just keep going. Trevor Ariza, Dragon Bender, Troy Daniels, Isaiah Kanan, Tyler Johnson. Remember him?
Yep, I do.
Ryan Anderson, and then it really falls off a cliff there.
So you know what's crazy about that team is we talked up both the Trevor Ariza free agent signing, which was like the big premier signing of that summer, and the Ryan Anderson acquisition of like, oh, this could give them a floor spacing 4. And then those guys both ended up being, 11th and 15th in minutes played on that team?
Yeah, Ariza played 26 games total. It was a complete disaster that entire time. But we learned why. The whole Suns franchise was a mess. If you remember at the time, they barely had a practice facility. They were practicing at the arena. I made a lot of jokes. I made a lot of hay over the idea of the practice facility at that time. That was one of my go-to moves back then. No chef, no one to cook meals for the players. They were just eating Chick-fil-A before games or whatever it was at the time. And I don't even blame Trevor Ariza, but boy, was he an enemy back then. At least, the Kelly Oubre trade was good that season. What do you remember from that season? Like, I don't really remember much, to be honest.
I remember a lot from the 18-19 season. I remember kind of us going back and forth between DeAnthony Melton, Eli Okobo, and I want to say Isaiah Kanan was the other one who was, we were like, who's going to be the point guard?
Yeah,
who's going to set up DeAndre Ayton, who was of course a rookie.
The real story of this podcast over the years was point guard and center. Like they never figured. I mean, they had a point guard and a center for a while, and they were finally good. That's the only time. I
remember the excitement about Mikal Bridges, who was drafted 10th overall and was playing the most minutes on the team, and like how good he was already as a rookie, except for the fact that he had the hitch in his shot and was entirely afraid to shoot.
Yet. Yeah,
entirely afraid to shoot threes.
Yeah.
So I remember a lot from that season, honestly.
Yeah. Kind of funny to think about. I think Kelly Oubre was a big standout of that season, and that was a season where they were still pretty bad. Frankly, they just weren't very good after that, and it was still very informative and fun. We learned a lot about doing analysis, and I think the other thing to think about over the 500 episodes is the friends we've made. You and I have become close friends over that time. I mean, frankly, we barely knew each other when we started the podcast, and now I consider you one of my closest friends, which is very cool. That's just something that's happened over the course of the podcast. I think the people that have been around from the beginning have taken a part, like they're part of that friendship. Like they have seen it grow over the years as well. And our sense of humor is sort of merged into one constant vocal stim machine that we've become over that time. But also David has become a very close friend of ours, I think. Kellen, Gerald, Steven, we've talked to Steven a lot over the years. And then all the people that have become sort of on the peripherals of the podcast as well, that in our Discord, or like Durag, I think is someone I really enjoy. Serge, someone who it's been years of joking with these people on Twitter.
Don't inflate Serge's ego. He doesn't deserve a shout out.
He was one that was on our. He's like one of the guys from the beginning from Reddit. Like he's one of the guys.
I know. There's certain guys who've been in the Discord for years now, but even before the Discord, they've been talking with us online for 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy to think about.
And like how important the Dwayne and Kellen and Gerald have been for us, not just as people who, some of them I consider friends, but also what they've done and the work that they do that allows us to do this podcast. Without them, it would be literally impossible. And then there's some like touchstone moments for the podcast, I think, right? JJ Redick was like the first big one, right? Where it's like, okay, we have like a real actual NBA person on the podcast, and this is like a big deal. Very nervous. KOC, I know how people feel about him now, but it was very kind to us in this podcast. He gave us a platform. We went on the Mismatch feed on The Ringer. Like, you and I appeared on that podcast feed, which is pretty crazy to think about. They put us on their YouTube channel, and then he came on the podcast for us, which is a big deal. More recently, Colin Gillespie joining us on the podcast, I think, was a big moment for us, having an active NBA player on the podcast. Anything else? Any other big episodes stand out to you mentally?
Well, it's what gave him the good mojo to go out and have a crazy season. Because we asked for Colin Gillespie to come on the podcast. We asked Suns PR if they could make that connection for us at a time when Gillespie had a great, hustle heavy season for the Suns. But I think the expectation was still he was going to be like, a fun backup point guard. It wasn't that he was going to go out and hit 263s or whatever he did last season and earn himself a contract of almost $14 million a year, $13 million a year. So, that was really, really exciting.
Any other big episodes stand out in your mind? We'll talk about what the fans think. It's funnier to read theirs, to be honest, but any other ones?
In terms of guests, I think you covered the big ones.
Yeah, those are the biggest ones.
Let's draft some teams.
Let's hold on. Before we get there, can we just say what I think when I think of the biggest moment, like the moment I felt the highest over the course of the podcast on the Suns, it was not after 2-0 in the NBA Finals. At least, at the time it probably was. But now in hindsight, because of the way that ended, I don't feel that way. Like that's been soured for me. I think the play I remember the most is when in the Western Conference Finals, Game 6 against the Clippers, when Devin Booker was literally standing at half court talking shit to fans courtside while Chris Paul cooked the Clippers to close out the game and make the NBA Finals. I think was the highest I've ever felt as like a fan, because it was just so great and I felt so confident in that moment. And that's the one that I think stands out to me. Don't get me wrong, the 64 win season I think is gone. It's like underrated now how fun that season was. I went into every game thinking the Suns were going to win. I've never felt like that since.
The Chris Paul perfect game closeout against the Pelicans in the first series of the 64 win season. Oh my God, that's up there as one of those moments for me too.
Good stuff.
Imagine buying your kid a toy only to find the batteries aren't included, or buying furniture but missing the tools to build it. Frustrating, right? Now imagine the exact same feeling, but you're paying way more. That is what buying business software usually feels like. Fragmented, disconnected, and incredibly expensive. Odoo completely changes that. Odoo is a complete, fully integrated business suite where all your apps actually talk to each other. We're talking automated lead routing for your sales team, seamless AI integration, and intuitive point-and-click website builder. It's everything your business needs to scale, saving you time, headaches, and money. Stop piecing your software together. Go to odoo.com. That's odoo.com to learn more.
You've heard us talk about Alchemy Roast before, but if you still haven't tried them, consider this your reminder. One of the things I appreciate about Alchemy is that they're focused on the coffee itself. They source quality beans, roast in small batches, and pay attention to the details that make a difference in the cup. Whether you're making pour over, espresso, or just a standard drip coffee at home, it's the kind of coffee that makes you look forward to your morning routine. And if you're someone who drinks coffee every day, upgrading what you're brewing is one of the simplest changes you can make. And you've been hearing these ads thinking, I'll check it out later. Well, now is a good time. Head to alchemyroaster.com and use the promo code TIMELINE to get 10% off your order. That's alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE today to support them, a local Phoenix business, and to support us here on this podcast. Let's draft a team. Okay, we're going to go over... There's a lot of players. I should have looked up the total number of players that were on the team when we were covering it, but it's probably a few hundred. It's a lot. There were some seasons there where like 20 guys suited up for the team. So it's over 100 players over the course of that time. We're going to just go back and forth. We talked about snake draft. We talked about options. We're going to draft a starting five plus a sixth man. How much research did you do for this?
Not a ton. I know. I mean, look, this is our freaking domain, dude. You know,
Yeah.
we should know these players from the past 8 years. So let's set some ground rules, okay? So we're each gonna draft a starting 5 and 6 man.
Yeah.
The idea is like you take a player at his peak, whatever you believe his peak is for the past 8 years.
We're choosing
as
the
a Sun.
season. The season.
You're choosing the season as a Sun that you believe was his peak, and once that player's off the board, he's off the board.
Yeah, we can't
So
pick
no-
Devin Booker 21 and then Devin Booker 22 in the next pick, right? It's just
Yeah, no,
one
that would
Devin
be-
Booker, but you choose the season.
That would entirely defeat the purpose of doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there has to be an understanding that like you're sort of putting together like a puzzle how these players fit together, because you're thinking about like how many games would this team win or something like that, or could my team beat your team? But potential, there's no idea of like future potential. It's just how good was that player in that particular moment, right? That's
Yep.
how I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I think so too. And there's because like it'll be interesting to see where everyone goes in some
I do
respects.
think in a fun way, not that we could ever test this, but I do think durability should like come into account, right?
Okay,
Like if you
leave Chris Paul alone.
like if I think the idea should be our teams are going to play a 7-game series. So if I draft Mark Williams as my starting center, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
is he gonna play?
the center
I think that
conversation's going to be pretty fascinating here.
I think that should play into it.
There's two players I think that are going to be interesting. Okay, I'm going to flip a coin and then it'll decide who gets Devin Booker, right? Basically, who goes first. I have a Cobra token. Cobra Arcade in front of me.
I was going to take Ray Spalding first overall, but okay, if you want to go with Devin Booker, that's fine too.
Would you like the side of the Cobra coin with a snake or the side that says Cobra Arcade Bar?
Cobra Arcade Bar.
Okay, I'll get the snake. I'm flipping it up. Snake. So I'm going first, and we're just going to alternate back and forth. And this one's easy. Well, I think the question for this one is not necessarily... It's not necessarily who the player is. It's what season was Devin Booker at his best. And to me, it's between the 22 season and the 23 season. Or
When we say that, we're using the second.
yeah, 21,
year. So
22,
21,
64 win. First team All NBA season. I think his defense has been better in the last 2 years, and he actually, last year specifically, was his best defensive season, but his best offensive season was probably that 22 season. And I brought up a full list of the seasons sorted by win shares. Do you want to know what the number one Devin Booker season by win shares is? Do you have any idea?
I would have no idea. Is it not one of those two?
It's not. It's 23-24, which is because he was a 60. He scored 27 points per game, and he was a All NBA, third team All NBA, and had a 61% true shooting. But I think that the 64 win season where he was fourth in MVP voting, was an All-Star, was first team All NBA. He averaged 27 points per game, only 4.8 assists, which of course that went up in subsequent years. I think the reason the 23-24 season is so good is his efficiency was peak, and he had 27 points and 7 assists. You know what?
In a way, that
Maybe I
was
should
kind of
pick
the
that
ideal.
season.
If I was going to get Devin Booker, which I knew whoever got the number one pick was going to take Booker, but like that was the ideal for him. I'm looking at the stats there that the 64-win season, he took 21 shots a game and averaged 4.8 assists, which is like a reasonable ratio. We all knew that he could still play make, but the presence of Chris Paul on the team allowed him to just play a role where he was hyper efficient every time he touched the ball. He didn't have to be the heliocentric version of himself who was focused on, how do I not get trapped when I come off a high screen pick and roll. And I can just operate from the elbow and absolutely dust teams. And the other fun thing about that season, call it an outlier or whatever, but he took 7 threes a game and shot 38% from three that season.
Yeah, you know what? I think I am going to pick the 23-24 season. The stats are crazy. He averaged 27 points and 7 assists on 61% true shooting, 36% from three on 6.1 attempts per game. I mean, he averaged 7 attempts per game at 38% with Chris Paul. It's, I think, the best evidence for he needs a point guard is his 3-point percentage in those years with Chris Paul was like the best it ever was. But 27-7 compared to 27-5, similar and better efficiency. Yeah, I think I'm going to go
Empty assists. Empty assists.
It's the difference between All-NBA first team, All-NBA third
Who
team.
are those assists to? Tyus Jones? Those didn't count.
Yeah, it's a rough team.
23-24. Who was that? Was that Tyus Jones, or was Tyus Jones 24-25?
24.
Who's the
No, I think,
who's the point?
let me look it up. I can look it up in a second, but I think I'm going to go, no, you know what? You talked me out of it. I'm going to go with his All-NBA first team. MVP. Let's go with the season where he actually had MVP votes. I think there's
Okay.
options for Devin Booker, right? He averaged 28 points the next season in 22-23, another underrated season. He didn't play as many games. So I'm going to go with fourth in MVP voting, 21-22, Devin Booker as my first overall pick. And to me, this is obviously easy, but I'm going to write it down. And you get pick number 2. And I think, to me, pick number 2 is easy. I don't know. We haven't discussed this at all. I'm curious what you're going to pick with pick number 2 here.
I think there's certain people who would not make this easy. You know,
Well, yeah,
like
I mean,
they would.
What are the options? It's between Chris Paul and Kevin Durant if we're talking about the two best
Yeah,
players that
I
played
think-
on the team during our time, right?
Exactly. And in terms of the two most talented players, it's Chris Paul or Kevin Durant, and I just have to go for the player who had far, far, far more impact on winning that I saw with my own eyes, and that was Chris Paul. So I'm going to go with the final season, 2021 Chris Paul. He played 70 games,
Interesting.
as opposed to the 64-win season. Are you surprised by that at all?
I am. The 64
Well, his
win season, by the way, is the number one win shares season by any Suns player. The Chris Paul, just by 0.2. It's 9.4 win shares. It's the number one season of any player we covered, 21-22, 36-year-old Chris Paul.
Well, okay. He averaged 10.8 assists in the season you're talking about and led the league, but he scored more in his first season as a Sun.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, if I don't have Devin Booker on my roster, I need a little bit more scoring pop. He also shot 40% from 3 compared to just 32% in the 64-win season. So this season overall, he averaged 16.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 9 assists, a steal and a half, 50 from the field, 40 from deep, 93 from the free throw line. I'm rounding up a little bit. Technically, it was 39.5 from deep, so it wasn't like a true 50, 40, 90 season, but it basically was. And I mean, he just had some absolute all-timer moments. I know he had a lot of all-timer moments in the 64-win season as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see who else I end up with here in my starting five. Mm-hmm. But if I end up needing Chris Paul to be a little bit more of a scorer, then I'm going to need the youngest version of himself to be able to do his classic, snake the pick and roll, get to the elbow, and just you knew every time that shot was money.
It's don't get me wrong, it's a great pick. There was two options there. I think Chris Paul was the obvious second pick, no matter what you do. And there's the two options of the 21 and 22 season where he was awesome in both of them. But in the 21 season, he was healthy until up 2-0. So that's the furthest he ever got as far as a healthy season. So let me ask before I pick. Are we asking people to vote on which team is better?
Why would that influence your pick?
I think you know why.
I think we should ask people to vote whose team is better. But
okay,
to be
Mikal
honest,
Bridges.
Okay. Are you actually?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fine.
21-22. Mikal Bridges, which let me bring up his averages. It's not going to be that impressive. Defensive Player of the Year, second place. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
All NBA or all
lost
defense.
to Marcus. Can we be entirely honest?
Yeah.
Now that it's been 5 years and we can give our honest take on it. Kind of a joke of a Defensive Player of the Year race in that it was between him or Marcus Smart, and neither of them deserved it.
I think Mikal was better than Marcus, but I think that's you're right. It probably should have been Gobert. People just didn't want it to be. He played all 82 games. He averaged 14.2 points per game. He shot 37% from the three-point line, shot 4 threes a game. 4 rebounds, 2 assists. It's not the overall impressive offensive season, but it is one of the best. It's probably the best defensive season any player has played on the Suns in the entire time. Is also the easiest player to root for, in that time. So if we're talking about getting votes on which team is going to be better, if the fans are voting, I wasn't ready to pick KD yet. I think this is the part of the conversation, right, where Kevin Durant is the third best player after, as far as like if you're picking a season, after Devin Booker and Chris Paul. But also those Kevin Durant years, I think, were the most miserable to cover for the podcast, and I think by extension for a lot of fans, the most miserable seasons to watch. So
Yeah,
if
I
we're
agree.
talking about people voting,
I mean,
on these teams,
outside of 2018, 2019, which was still, an absolute slog.
Yeah,
There was this
yeah.
idea of future potential with Ayton and
Yeah.
and Bridges,
and
but
Booker, you're watching Booker grow. That's really the thing that was fun in that season.
Right. But no, the Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal years were absolutely miserable. Bradley Beal, I'll just say right now, between the two of us, we're going to pick 12 players here, starting 5 each in a 6-man.
Mm-hmm.
Bradley Beal's not being taken in these 12 spots, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Let me
And-
tell
and
you
the-
where he ranks. I'm going to actually bring up the win shares and tell you where his season ranks. But go ahead, keep talking.
Well, I think, in the last 8 seasons, Bradley Beal, the fact that he can't even crack the top 12 based on who we expected him to be is absolutely pathetic.
34th
Yeah.
in win shares.
Sure.
And this is a man who got a lot of minutes when he played.
I think it's interesting that you chose that Mikal Bridges year. I mean, it makes sense. Technically, could you have taken the year afterwards where he got traded to Brooklyn halfway through the season? But
I
think
wouldn't
was
have
the-
included his time in Brooklyn, but yeah.
No, I know, but I think was the year where, do you remember
He started running
just
pick and rolls.
just before the Kevin Durant trade, there was there were a couple months. This was 2022, like December 2022, January 2023. Just before the Kevin Durant trade, a bunch of guys were injured. Mikal Bridges starts running pick and rolls. The Suns were losing those games. I remember they were losing those games because all of a sudden Mikal Bridges had to be like 18 to 20 points per game. But he was doing it for the first time, and then he went on to do it for a couple straight years in Brooklyn. And it was interesting to watch his progression. That I remember that was a fun time, weirdly, for the podcast, because we were like finally watching this player who we had been invested in for a few years find this confidence within himself.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but that team was also, I don't know, it's just so stilted and injured. I don't remember it very fondly. I think the 22 year, his defense was just insane, and I think it's almost become underrated, and his offense was good. He was just really good. There were multiple games that season where we've talked about the idea of a clutch defender on the podcast in the past. Dyson Daniels was the guy that I brought up as an example. I forget who it was that come up with this idea. Maybe Vicini. That's what Mikal Bridges was that year. There were multiple games where he checked in the fourth quarter and snatched victory from the hands of defeat because of his defense and just a couple of plays that he would make in the fourth quarter. I mean, that whole team was so clutch in the fourth quarter, but Mikal Bridges' defense was a huge, huge, huge part of that. And it was a fun time. Now you.
My turn.
Yeah.
So, look, between the two of us, I'm the one who's like literally gotten into it with Kevin Durant on Twitter.
His burner account did follow me.
There's a real irony to me being the guy who drafts Kevin Durant here. I recognize that. I was the one who always got into it with his stands online. I think I was actively trying to devalue what he was bringing to the team at a certain point.
And you were antagonizing them too.
I was antagonizing them a little bit. And I 100% recognize also, though, that I agree with what you were saying. Those years were miserable. They were miserable as a result of the expectations. All that to say, I think I need to draft Kevin Durant here, because if I don't draft Kevin Durant now, I don't see how I'm going to get any scoring on my team. Mm-hmm. If you look at kind of the other options, I mean, there are a couple other guys who scored close to 20 points per game in the last several seasons. So maybe I could feel like I could, sort of optimize it in a funny way. And it is just kind of funny, the idea of Kevin Durant in this draft falling to like 6th or 7th. But I do think I need to take him now.
Yeah.
So I've got Chris Paul as my point guard. I'm going to go with Kevin Durant, the Frank Vogel season.
Yeah.
I think just the
Yeah.
the earliest, the better, because at least that team won 49 games, which in hindsight is like, it's just amazing that Frank. No, it's just amazing that Frank Vogel got fired.
Oh, yes.
And that we replaced him with Budenholzer.
I mean, he wasn't good either, but Bud was just worse.
That just reflects how high those expectations were for that team, because that team was pretty good. That team was better than the team that we just watched for the Suns this past season. Kevin Durant averaged 27 points, 6.5 rebounds, 5 assists a game. He shot 52 from the field, 41 from deep, 86 from the free throw line.
By far his best season here, I think.
He was all NBA second team. I think there are certain things that are going to be super frustrating about this team. Like, he just can't be the guy to handle a ton of touches in the clutch. But you know what? That's what I have Chris Paul for. Chris Paul and Kevin Durant only played together for 8 games on the Suns, right? And then they got rid of Chris Paul. So, I think this team would have a better chance of gelling with those two guys meshing together. Chris Paul can kind of be the guy to set up KD around the elbow all game long. And then, in clutch time, there'd be a little bit more of an even 50-50 split between the two of them. So I'd feel pretty good about that. I'll lock in KD with my pick here.
I think that is the correct pick.
By the way, when you're
I'm
writing
glad
down,
it was you.
if you're gonna make a graphic here, make sure you're including the year of the guy.
Yes, KD, you say 2023, 22, 23, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so far I got Devin Booker, 22, Mikal Bridges, same season, 22. You have Chris Paul, 21, and KD, 23. Your team, I mean, that's pretty good. Those are two really good players who hate each other now for some reason. I have this sorted by every season for the Suns by win shares.
You're doing too much research. It's cheating.
There are 5 players that let's just say here are the first 5 players that show up. The number 1 season in win shares is Chris Paul, 21-22. And then Devin Booker, 23-24. And then you got Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, and then a different player. Kevin Durant is the next name to show up, and then Grayson Allen.
Wow.
The player that I left off there, the 5th best season by win shares, you have I'm guessing you can probably guess who that player is.
Probably DeAndre Ayton.
2021 DeAndre Ayton, the first, if you will, contract year. He was eligible for an extension after that season. He did not get one. They let him get to free agency, and we all know how that ended. It ended poorly. It all went sort of downhill from there. The question is, also, it's pretty crazy that Grayson Allen had the 11th best season by win shares, by the way.
Wait, I'm sorry. Which one was that? Which Grayson season was that?
23-24.
This season, I have that on my list of I have a short list of, question marks. Like maybe, I'll take this guy late in the draft. And Grayson is one of those because he shot 46% from deep that year, the Frank Vogel season, I think.
There's 2 seasons in contention for the best shooting season by a Suns player ever. And they were that season by Grayson Allen and last season by Colin Gillespie.
Yep, also on my short list.
I think it's tough to make the case for any other season beyond that. Obviously, every Devin Booker season is up there because every mid-range pull-up is actually one of the hardest shots in the NBA, and he just makes them at an insane rate. And then, of course, the Kevin Durant efficiency seasons. But the pure volume and audacity by Grayson Allen in that season and Colin Gillespie last season are crazy. And it shows, actually. Colin Gillespie is 16th last season as well, so obviously had an impact on that. But the question is, when you look at this list, it really helps to put a real emphasis on just how troubling the center situation for the Suns was over the time that we've covered this team.
Yeah, it's an absolutely puzzling situation where we know everyone has these complicated feelings about DeAndre Ayton, but at the same time, both of us knew, I think, that DeAndre Ayton was going to have to come off the board first as the center in this draft. And that after, not that you've done it officially yet.
Yeah, not
right?
yet. I haven't. I actually don't know what I'm going to do yet. Yeah.
But I think we both understand that eventually he's going to have to come off the board.
And then who's the next center?
And that I have whoever drafts DeAndre Ayton, I have absolutely no idea who the other center should be. I think there's a bunch of interesting candidates.
Maybe we'll wait maybe we'll wait. But I think we're going to have a conversation of what was the second best season by a center for the Suns in the history of the podcast when we get there. I guess the second person to pick a center, we'll have to figure that out. But if we're not talking about a center now, which I don't know what I'm going to take yet, and then we go to wings, and the wings actually get kind of interesting, right? Because you have left still Cameron Johnson, Jay Crowder, Dylan Brooks is another guy that can be picked.
Kelly
there.
Oubre?
Kelly Oubre can be picked.
I think there's
there.
a lot of interesting wings left. There's a lot of depth
Yeah.
at the wing spot right now.
Yeah, Grayson Allen, I think you consider him a wing. Torrey Craig had some time, even
There's
Jordan
also-
Goodwin,
can I-
I
I don't want to give you advice, but you still need a point guard. And can I point out that there's one underratedly good point guard still left for you to take?
I'm going to
would be-
I already know who I'm going to pick, and he's going to be my last pick, and he's still going to be there.
He's still going to be there?
I think so. Well, unless you take him, I guess there's a chance. There's two options for me, but I'm picking with the heart on that one, and I know who it's going to
Okay.
be.
Okay.
Fine, I'll do it. 21, DeAndre Ayton.
Okay.
2020-21. He was good
like
that
that.
year.
Of course
He was really good.
We talked about him with love and warmth mostly
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah, and this is not the 64-win season where he was also good. I actually think he was better in the finals year. Really started going poorly
what's insane?
towards the end of that year. But yeah.
The 64-win season he averaged, not that blocks are everything, right? Blocks are, sometimes an overrated stat. You block a shot, it's just an offensive rebound for the other team. They put it right back up. But DeAndre Ayton, who we were talking about, like max contract worthy, averaged 0.7 blocks per game in the 64-win season. It's just funny. He was such a funny player. And of course was never going to change his ways and his habits. And that's why the long-term potential became so frustrating. But for your sake, we are just drafting two teams to play in a 7-game series against each other, and you just need the best possible player, and DeAndre Ayton's going to be your guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be your guy.
Can I add something to this right now in the middle of it?
Sure.
It gives you an advantage if you want to use it. Let's add drafting a coach.
Why does that give me an advantage?
In that you can draft it at any time. If you feel that having a coach is more important than drafting a player, you can pick the coach first.
Okay.
This is the Giannis versus...
Give me Earl Watson right now. Well, Earl Watson was pre-podcast.
Can
right?
you name all the coaches that we've covered by memory?
That's such... Wait, okay. Do you have them up?
I
Can you
don't.
test me?
I want to try to do it too, so I'll do it with you. See if we can put it together, and then I'll see if I can
Igor
find it.
Kokoshkov, 18-19.
Yeah.
I mean, then was it just Monty Williams for 4 years?
I think it was.
So it's not that hard, actually. It's Kokoshkov,
Yeah,
Monty Williams.
because we were after the little carousel before Kokoshkov. That's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if we had and even then I could have done it. But like if you had to do like Jay Triano, Earl Watson, then it gets a little bit more difficult. But for us, it was just Kokoshkov, Monty Williams, Frank Vogel, Budenholzer, and Jordan Ott.
Yeah. Okay, so those
are
are our
5.
options. I guess you don't need... those are probably going to be our last picks. I'll let you pick the coach
Should we
first.
draft owners? One of us has to take Robert Sarver, and the other takes Matt Ishbia.
Okay.
No, we're not doing that.
We should draft CBA rules. I choose 2018-19 CBA.
Do you have... Wait, okay. We need to get through this.
Okay, I have Devin
do you have
Booker,
any-
22, Mikal Bridges, 22, DeAndre Ayton, 21. You have Chris Paul, 21, KD, 23. Who's your third pick?
Do you have anything else to say about Ayton before I move on to my
No,
pick?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory there. I don't want to take him, but I will say that my team is looking very Ryan McDonough right now. So I'm going to have to fix that with my next few picks, but yeah.
So what I want with my pick right now is, I think in terms of pure talent, there are other guys that I could take. But I'm going to zag a little bit. What I'm feeling right now is I have Chris Paul, lights out playmaker, of course, and I have KD. What frustrates me about those two guys together is I need someone who's going to space the floor and empty the clip.
Yeah.
So I need someone, but ideally there's a bunch of guys who can do that. Like you talked about Grayson Allen, Colin Gillespie. I want someone who I think can take a lot of threes, make a lot of threes, but also has a certain size and versatility to them. And so even though I know we're just talking about who they were at the time and not so much future potential, I actually think this is my opportunity. Tell me if you think this is a big zag. I'm going to go with 2022 Cam Johnson.
No, I think that's a great pick.
So Cam Johnson,
I think if we're talking about the wings that are left, which are Jay Crowder, Dylan Brooks, Cam Johnson, like the main forwards, right? I don't know if you have Dylan Brooks on your list. I do, personally. I think
Yeah, no,
Cam
I
Johnson
think-
is the best player of those three.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think the options here were Dylan Brooks, Jay Crowder, Kelly Oubre, or Cam Johnson. And all four of those are talented wings. All of them have a weakness, like a tangible, obvious weakness. But I think of those four, Cam's just going to be the guy who takes a lot of threes and makes a lot of threes. I can trust him to dribble the ball a little bit without being a black hole, which is a huge issue with the other three guys.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't think he's the defender that Dylan Brooks or Jay Crowder are, or even maybe Kelly Oubre. But, I think I think him and KD together at the 3 and 4 spots gives me a certain size that I feel good about. So I think Cam Johnson's my guy here.
I think that is a great. If you're trying to talk about this team fitting together, Cam Johnson. I wish I could bring up the numbers. I'm not going to do it now, but I imagine the numbers when Cam Johnson and Chris Paul shared the floor together were very good. Those guys worked together extremely well, and that makes a lot of sense for your team. Devin Booker and Cam Johnson had great chemistry as well. Any other thoughts on that? I love Cam Johnson, by the way.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I think this is where it gets interesting, right? This is where the picks become more subjective. I think we've kind of got the main 6 guys off the board, right?
So the really funny thing at this point is you need a point guard and I need a center.
Yeah.
And I think either of us could fuck over the other by doing something really funny, like if I took a second point guard or you took a second center.
I think there are 2 good point guard seasons to pick from here, actually. I think I'd be okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Dylan Brooks.
Okay. Yeah. No,
which
that's
obviously it's 25-26 Dylan Brooks because there's only one season to choose from. But the idea of Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Dylan Brooks, and DeAndre Ayton on the floor together, it's got some size, it's got some defense, it's got some scoring, not a lot of passing. So I'm going to really have to figure out a way to solve that. I'll have to think about that with my next 2 picks. But I think Dylan Brooks is the right kind of guy to motivate this team. Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton at their peak, which I'm picking them at their peak, excellent defenders, but not the meanest guys on the floor. And I kind of need some grit. I kind of need some anger. And there were 2 options here. To me, it was between... I think that I probably rate Dylan Brooks and Jay Crowder higher than most fans. Those are 2 guys I think that I was consistently higher on than a lot of fans were. I have a Boss Man shirt. I had one at one time from his merch collection. In fact, I'm going to go look it up, see if they're still for sale. Maybe I'll buy another one. But I was a big fan of Jay Crowder during that time on the Suns too. So I'm going to go with Dylan Brooks. That means I have Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre, and Dylan Brooks all at their peak. Now you have Chris Paul, KD, Cam Johnson.
That's a hell of a defense at its peak, right? We're talking. So you have your 3-4-5 now, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, starting
Dylan Brooks. Well, who's your 4? Dylan Brooks?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because you could go super big and make Devin Booker your point guard.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. Starting
some people
5
would be mad if you did that, but
yeah,
you could do it.
But there's really only one worthy starting point guard over our time covering this team, and it's Chris Paul. There are other guys who have played point guard, but yeah,
that's not true. There's one other guy who I think you're forgetting.
I'm not. I mean, I think you're not going to pick him, so he's on my list. But I guess maybe I'll see. But what are you going to pick next? Chris Paul, KD, Cam Johnson, and
so I've got Chris Paul as my 1, Cam Johnson as my 3,
before you pick,
KD is my 4. Yeah.
Are you thinking center here? Because I think I want to have a conversation about that. Okay.
No, I'm still not because I have no.
You can wait because I'm not going to pick one. Yeah.
I literally have no idea. I'm still deciding who's the second best center should we just mention who the options are?
Yes, I think you could. I think first of all you could make the case that Oso Ighodaro last year is on that list. That's how bad it is.
So I think my short list
Aaron
of options.
Baines, Nurkic that one year. That's really on the list, guys. And if
Frank Vogel Nurkic is unironically one of the better options.
It's one of the best defensive seasons by a center the Suns have had, which is so sad. And don't get mad at me for that. That's a true fact.
I can't take... As someone who talked so much shit about both KD and Nurkic, I simply cannot have both of those players on my team in good conscience. I cannot.
Baines. The year
Aaron
he shot
Baines
threes.
is an option.
I think that's a good option, actually.
Aaron Baines is an option.
JaVale
Dario
McGee
Saric is an option. Oso is an option. Mark Williams, of course, is an option.
Mark Williams is technically by win shares the highest season left. Last season is the 14th highest win share season. Win shares, of course, is boosted by rebounds.
I think I could do a couple interesting things here, but ultimately, again, I'm thinking chemistry. I'm not necessarily thinking who's the most talented player right now. I'm thinking chemistry, and sort of in line with my last pick with Cam Johnson. I want another guy who can shoot a lot of threes, put the ball on the floor. To borrow a take or a line from my good friend Monty Williams, play 0.5 basketball. And I just think 2023, or was it 2024? Yeah, Frank Vogel, Grayson Allen is my guy.
You're
taking
putting
Frank
together
Vogel.
a very good team right now.
I'm taking Frank Vogel, Grayson Allen to be my shooting guards. So now I've got Chris Paul and KD to kind of do the scoring, and I've got Cam Johnson and Grayson Allen to spread the floor.
Your
But
defense,
both of
I don't
those
know,
guys-
though.
I know. No, I know. There's a real gamble here about defense that I think is fair to worry about, but I think both of those guys can space the hell out of the floor. And if the closeout comes a little bit too tight, they can attack the closeout in a straight line drive, move the ball to someone else without like I thought about taking Kelly Oubre here, who's a really talented player and would kind of give me a little bit more just a better paint finisher. But Kelly Oubre frustrated me so much watching him play and just, attack the basket and never pass the ball. Or like I could have taken Jay Crowder here for some defensive grit, but he's just not a very good offensive player.
What about Eric?
I think Grayson-
Did you consider Eric Gordon?
Not especially. Not especially.
Ish Wainwright?
Ish Wainwright. Ish Wainwright was at the top of my list, right up there with Paris Bass.
Yeah.
So
Bull.
Bull. So I've got CP3, Grayson Allen, Cam Johnson, and KD as my top four right now. I feel solid.
It's
about
pretty
that.
good. And you gave me an easy pick. I'm going with Jay Crowder right here. And I'm just going with a big, gigantic starting five with size. And I guess I got to pick a season for Jay Crowder. What was the best Jay Crowder season? Let's look at his seasons. I feel like it was the same thing every year. The thing about Jay Crowder is he moved the ball. Like, he was a player who was capable of passing, which this starting five I have right now doesn't have a ton of passing. So I guess it was his first year. I think it was 2021 was probably his best year. He averaged 10 points, 2.1 assists, 4.7 rebounds. He shot 39% from three on 6 attempts and was one of the better defenders in the NBA at that time. So I'm going to go finals year Jay Crowder. That means my starting lineup as it stands. I guess I could move players around if I really wanted to. But my starting lineup as it stands is Devin Booker at point guard, Mikal Bridges at shooting guard, which is pretty interesting. Dillon Brooks at small forward, Jay Crowder power forward, DeAndre Ayton at center. So not the best offensive team, but a very, very good defensive
It's a tough team.
Like
we're kind of taking opposite approaches.
Yeah,
here,
in a way, I didn't expect it, but I have a top defense, probably top defense in the NBA with this starting lineup. It would be very good. A lot of pressure on Devin Booker to create, though. Mikal Bridges has to do some of that additional creation, but we got Dillon Brooks in there to shoot those, mid-range shots as the shot clock winds down, because he did that at an insane rate in 2026 season. And I got that season. So I got the best Dillon Brooks season when it comes to helping out offensively. No assists, of course, but that's okay.
Are you ready for me to do something funny?
Okay.
That might fuck you over.
I'm a little
bit?
scared, yeah.
So I could take a center here, but again, there's so many mid centers, I don't even know
You
which one
can
I
use
want.
it as your last pick. Yeah, it's fine.
So I think what I'm going to do instead is take my sixth man here, because we said we're drafting a sixth man.
I am scared now.
And the sixth man doesn't need to be a guy who like only came off the bench, right? You can take a starting player as your sixth man. You can take So I'm taking Ricky Rubio.
God,
2020
you
Ricky
son
Rubio.
of a bitch. That was good. I was like, Sam's not going to take Ricky Rubio. I'll just take him last.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because I feel like you've locked in Devin Booker as your playmaker.
Yeah.
But you could have taken Ricky Rubio as your sixth, which I'm sure you wanted to
I
do,
did.
and then give yourself like the option to have Booker play off of
that's
Ricky
exactly
Rubio.
right. That's exactly what I was going to do. Yeah.
I already have Chris Paul, but I know that there's a chance that Chris Paul is going to like have to play with one hand at some point in this series, that he's going to fall apart. And I just want to give my team 48 possible minutes of good pass first point guard play. And Ricky Rubio in the 2019-2020 season, the Bubble
He was
Suns, was underrated as hell. Let me pull up the stats, actually. People forget he was a bucket.
He made threes that year. He traveled on almost every single one because he did a little step before he shot, but they never called it, so that's all that matters.
Averaged 13 points, 4.7 rebounds, 8.8 assists, 1.4 steals.
I mean, that's a
8.8
great
assists,
sixth man. It really is.
8.8 assists to 2.7 turnovers, shot 36% from three, to your point. The thing that my team really sucks at right now, because I've got two small guys in Ricky Rubio and Chris Paul. I've got two good shooters but athletically limited guys in Grayson Allen and Cam Johnson. And then I've got KD, who's 7 feet tall and just likes to take jump shots. I don't know if my team can attack the basket at all. Like, I think they'll try, but I don't know if they actually have anyone who can kind of just force it down your throat. So that's a challenge, but I like the fact that Rubio can kind of just come off my bench and keep things consistent and fuck you over a little bit in the process.
It's true. It was a smart pick because that is who I was going to pick. That is definitively the second best point guard that's ever played for the Suns. Now, I think this puts me
in the timeline era,
yes,
not ever.
Sorry, of course. It's in our time since doing this, in our 500 episodes. This puts me in a real precarious situation here, and I think it calls into question what a sixth man is and what the importance of a sixth man is for the Suns, because Saric,
you still have good guard options here.
Yeah,
I
think what I'm thinking through right now is Colin Gillespie last year, which I think that's at the top of my list now that I'm just thinking it through. Dario Saric, 21 season, actually, probably, is a good one. I mean, people might not like to hear, but Oso Ighodaro last year, that was a very, very good. Maybe it would mess you up a little bit too.
I would agree with you, but I think if you put Oso on the graphic and we have people vote, then I win automatically.
Yeah, probably. It would go triple platinum on our Discord though. I would win on the Discord and lose on Twitter. I think I have to go based on the way my team is set up with Colin Gillespie. I need more offense.
It's just a good pick, man. Mm-hmm. Colin was so good last year. I mean, I honestly considered picking Colin over Rubio.
Yeah.
Is that crazy?
No.
Just to triple down on 3-point shooting around KD and Chris Paul.
By the advanced stats, and you could value them at whatever level you want to value them, but by the advanced stats, Colin Gillespie was better last season than Ricky Rubio was in that year. I would have picked Ricky Rubio anyway because I just value what he does more, or in the way that I'm setting up my team, because I knew you were going to pick Chris Paul, so I just assumed Ricky Rubio would be there for me later. And I think I feel good about Colin Gillespie being the guy running off of screens, and
I think Colin's a really good pick. Can we give a quick shout out now, because I need a center with my last pick, so this guy's not going to come off the board. But was there any attention paid to you of kind of campaign versus Colin Gillespie here?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, well, shit. No, I got.
Well, don't. I'm not telling you to change your pick.
No, I'm just. I didn't think of it in this moment. Funny enough, but I did consider it when I was thinking about it earlier today. Cameron Payne was very good. I mean, this is a man who helped close out the Clippers. He was very important for the Suns actually getting to the NBA Finals. And
I think the funny thing about Cam Payne versus Colin, who's been very steady for the Suns, every time he enters the starting lineup, he's just a very steady player. Cam Payne was much more shaky. And if you look at his overall stats, definitely the advanced stats were far worse. But he just seemed to show up in the big moments.
Yeah.
More often than not. Now, I will say, I don't think Cam Payne did anything in the finals against the Bucks.
He actually became terrible and then had to lose all his minutes. He didn't even play the last two games, I think.
Right. But, up until that
I don't think he was healthy. Not that it matters, but I do think that is context.
Yeah, I think he was eating the Taco Bell lettuce. He had cyclosporiasis.
Actually, I saw him at Chick-fil-A after the Western Conference Finals.
That's what did it, that Taylor Farms.
Yeah.
Never wrong, just early.
That's true. I actually did see him. That was not a joke, by the way, but yeah.
I remember the season after the 64-win season, when Cam Payne had to play, he only started maybe 15 games that season, but when he had to start, he was averaging damn near 9-10 assists a game. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He would just show up for you when you most needed him, and then he would go back to the bench. And in his role, Cam Payne was such a weird guy. In his bench role against inferior competition, he played worse, I think. Mm-hmm. But he would level up his game compared to who he was matched up against. Fun player. I would take Colin Gillespie over Cam.
Let me
Payne,
just
too.
say head in the heart, since that was my last pick. The guy that I struggled to leave off of this just from my heart is Jordan Goodwin.
Yeah, I get it.
He was so awesome last year and just so easy to root for and just a great difference maker. He made a difference every time he stepped onto the court consistently.
Should I take Jordan Goodwin as my center?
I mean, you could. The other. I mean, Kelly Oubre had one really great season for the Suns too. That is, I think, almost underrated. I still think
And then
Dario
I'm just
Saric
and then I'm just going with KD small ball 5 for this entire series.
Yeah,
We could do that.
I mean, you could
do that.
Yeah, you could. I think not having.
I need a guy who's just a beefcake to kind of bully DeAndre Ayton a little bit. And you know what? With my last pick, I'm going to go with 2020 Aaron Baines.
Yes, I'm so glad you did that. Yes, he was awesome.
Because I know
the numbers
this
were
is-
better when he played than when Ayton played that year.
I know this is pleasing to our friend David, who hopefully is going to listen to this one. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just feel like I have a ton of three-point shooting now, right? Like, if I'm going to have KD on my team and he's going to frustrate me by taking a few too many mid-range shots, make sure that everyone else around him is spacing the floor, and that includes Aaron Baines. Really, of everyone in the last 8 years for the Suns, kind of the only true stretch 5 option that the Suns have ever played, who also protected the rim, right? Because there were some other guys. Frank Kaminsky could stretch the floor as a big. Dario Saric could stretch the floor as a big. But the only guy who could also protect the rim in all the time we've been covering the podcast was Aaron Baines. So I think I'm going with Aaron Baines.
Okay.
Fuck it.
I'm going to pick Coach Ott, and I'm assuming you're going to take Monty, right? Because there's really only 2 coaches to pick from here. I'm going to go with Ott first because I think Ott is a better fit for the guys I drafted, like a team without Chris Paul.
I could zag here and go with Kokoshkov, put him in a blender. I'll go with Monty Williams.
Yeah, I think it's
Monty Williams and CP3 had a good connection, you know?
Yeah. Until the end. Okay, so that means my... they really didn't seem to like each other at the end there. My team is
fair.
Devin Booker, 2022. Mikal Bridges, 2022. DeAndre Ayton, 2021. Dylan Brooks, 2026. Jay Crowder, 2021. Colin Gillespie, 6-man off the bench, 2026. Coached by Jordan Ott. Sam's team, 21 Chris Paul, 23 Kevin Durant, 22 Cam Johnson, 23 Grayson Allen, 2020 Aaron Baines starting lineup, and then Ricky Rubio from 2019, another heart pick, but also a good player coming off the bench as your 6-man. Your team is going to average 18 20 assists just from 2 players alone, and lots of 3-point shooting. My team will be the best defense in the NBA. And will require Devin Booker to score 30 points a game to win, but Colin Gillespie will be coming off screens shooting 15 threes a game. And with Coach Ott, I'm shooting
I think there's a real
100 threes a game. My team with Coach Ott.
I think there's a real chance that your team is just, has the physicality to bully my team. My team has small guys like CP3 and Rubio, Grayson Allen.
And
But
KD's
also-
going to fold halfway through this series too. So.
Yeah, but I was going to say the same thing about DeAndre Ayton.
Fair.
I have you have DeAndre Ayton. How about this? If one of our teams had both KD and DeAndre Ayton, that team would fold immediately.
We had to
that
split
would
them
be
up.
that team would be cooked.
Good stuff. I think we'll post this online. We'll see what people think. And I'm curious for those listening, players that you would have picked that we left off. Let us know. I'm actually curious to see if there's anyone obvious that we missed.
Campaign,
Yeah.
Oubre,
Yeah.
Kelly Oubre, I think is a big
That's a good
one.
one.
Is there anyone else?
I mean, Saric, I think was pretty. I feel like underrated at this point.
Some people might argue 2026 Jalen Green. There might be 1 or 2 stands
Yeah,
out there
maybe.
who are saying, hey, why not Jalen Green?
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Jalen Green maybe still has the potential to do stuff for the Suns next year, but what we've seen from Jalen Green so far just hasn't been very
where
good.
would Royce O'Neal his best season?
That's a
been?
good one.
'Cause-
That's a good
'cause
one.
he's
Royce
pretty
O'Neal
good.
was an option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he had a
Yeah, I
couple
think you
good
could
seasons.
even make a case that Royce O'Neal could come off the board before Kelly Oubre because he just does good role player things.
Yeah, he's good. All right, last segment here. I posted a Google form, and feel free if you want to check out at this point of the podcast. We're going to do a little bit of circle jerking for ourselves here, but I asked people on our Discord to give us their favorite moments of the podcast over the years, and we're just going to quickly react to some of these moments and maybe tell some stories if there's anything interesting to say of that time. There are, I would say, 3 moments that come up consistently in this time. The number one thing that came up was the finals preview. The NBA finals preview, which I did, probably like a 6-minute intro with a song. And I think it's our most listened to episode by like 4,000 or 5,000 plays, probably. It's way, way above any other episode because I think people listen to it more than once, is part of it. For context, I do occasionally, for those who maybe haven't listened for a long time, I have over time occasionally done like more produced intros or things that have music and storytelling to them. In fact, go back and listen to episode 10 of our podcast. You'd be surprised. I'm not even going to spoil what that's about. Just go listen to it. It's a bit different than anything we've ever done, and it was about 50 hours of work for me. So I don't know if we'll ever do that again unless I get a new job. Do you want to guess? We're episode 500. Do you want to guess about what episode that NBA Finals preview was?
150?
182. Pretty close.
Okay.
So that's how long ago it was. That's kind of crazy. Here's one story. The most epic episode by far was episode 182, where you did an intro to the NBA Finals preview. Not only did it get me crazy hyped for the finals, but it made me realize that the timeline had finally arrived. Also, I went on... Yeah.
That's very sweet, but very funny to put it that way.
And he said also, these are all anonymous. Also, I went on a run listening to this episode while I was in California, and I ran past Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yes, he's very tall, and I turned around and waved. Anyways, thanks for all you two have done. It's been a wild ride. So that's kind of a funny moment where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was right by someone while he was listening to our NBA Finals preview. Good story by him. But any thoughts on that episode? That was, a moment that felt really special to me, recording that podcast and just sort of knowing that, holy shit, we're doing this. We're covering the NBA Finals. It's crazy.
I think people have known this for a long time, but if you're ever wondering about who's doing the audio production side of things or work that goes into the sort of more pre-produced segments, it's always Mike. So Mike always gets the credit there. I had a great time showing up and being super hyped about the finals, but it was all your work.
Yeah.
In terms of that segment, which for the record, I think I also listened to multiple times.
Yeah, I listened to it earlier today.
You know what that makes me think of, though? The Kareem story makes me think of, do you remember who it was who was listening to the podcast and James Jones randomly showed up?
Yeah.
They were listening in their car.
They were listening in his truck, I believe he said, and James Jones was walking in the neighborhood next to him, and he pulled over to say hi, and James Jones asked him, "What are you listening to?" And he said, "The Timeline. It's a Suns podcast. Do you know about it?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." And that was all he said. He knew.
Meanwhile...
And
meanwhile, that
background,
exact segment, we're arguing over whether James Jones should actively be fired or not.
I'm always on Team James Jones. I'm a defender of James Jones. The second most brought up moment in these responses that we got. Any guess?
No, I don't know.
People like when you get mad, Sam.
Oh, yeah.
The moment, I believe, is we can't make any threes if you don't fucking take any. Which, of course, happened after the Minnesota... one of the Minnesota losses in the sweep against the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, wow.
A very late game, 1:30 in the morning when we hit record to start the podcast. And Sam started the episode saying, I have to be quiet because it's the middle of the night. And then
that's why
screamed
people like
the
this
loudest
one.
you have ever screamed on an episode out of pure rage and anger in a way that has never happened. But there's multiple references throughout these responses to anytime Sam gets mad or anytime Sam screams. So people enjoy your misery, I think. How do you feel about that?
I think that makes a lot of sense because I think people want... they tune in and they feel miserable and they want someone to commiserate with them. I think it's funny to think back to that Minnesota series. Of course, we're talking about the Frank Vogel season again, right? And And again, just the expectations. Like this year, we covered the Suns in the playoffs and we covered a first round sweep. And I feel like the two of us just got on the podcast after every OKC loss and we're like, well, we sure gave it our best shot this time. You know, like it was just such a sort of
The
goofy
expectations
attitude.
were low. Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, let's keep it to less than 15 points. And versus that Minnesota series, it was just such a gut punch that they couldn't even win a game.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, Grayson
I
Allen.
do remember being very mad.
Grayson Allen being the sort of linchpin of what was necessary for that. I'm going to add since we're on you getting mad and screaming, I'm going to read a whole thing that somebody wrote to us here. There's probably better moments, but I can't remember now. But the Sam crash out in the first 2 minutes of the episode titled Broken plus Trade of the Week, which was March 2025. This was an era where we started making a trade every single week because the team was so miserable. Always stuck out with me because of the buildup and how fast we got into the episode and the way Sam screams 30 minutes about Tyus Jones playing time not only almost broke my eardrums, but also represented exactly what I was feeling at the time. And he added, I've been listening to the podcast since the old logo. I don't know if I started in 2018 or 2019, but I wanted to say thanks for all the fun hours that I had listening to the pod. You guys have a mix of informality and talking about the team and basketball in serious ways with actual knowledge that's really hard to find anywhere. I still get pumped with the intro every episode. Recently, my father passed away, and the pod was one of the only things I could bear listening to and watching that allowed me to disconnect for some moments and breathe a little bit. Thank you. So a really nice message, I think, from someone.
Thank you for that. Wow.
Yeah, that frankly, I was a little bit emotional when I read that earlier today. And I don't know who wrote that, but thank you for that. That is really nice. And I have had low moments in my life where listening to podcasts that I like and enjoy has been one of the things that allows me some reprieve. So I relate to this. And the fact that we are people that have done that for other people in our lives is not only humbling, but also kind of, I don't know. It's just, it's hard for me to even fully comprehend or process that. But thank you.
If I can be honest, I think I speak for both of us when I say we've had low moments in both of our lives over the past 8 years where coming on to record this podcast kind of has the same effect for us.
I've said it before, putting on the headphones and just sort of jacking into the matrix, if you will, when we do this episode does sort of make the rest of the world not exist for a while while we're recording this. And that has helped. And at times frankly, if we're going to get vulnerable here, at times it can be hard to record the podcast. And in some ways, this episode 500 is important because I don't know how to say it this way, but like, I don't know if we're going to get to 1,000. You know what I mean? Like, I really have no idea. I didn't think we were going to get to 500. So I really have no idea. And like the idea of stopping the podcast now is a weird thing to even consider or even like say out loud. I don't have any intention to, but the idea of another 8 years and 500 episodes it's kind of crazy to think about, Sam. Like,
I think we're guaranteed a championship in the next 8 years. It's got to happen for us at some point.
That'll be our last episode.
You're hearing my guarantee now. Should we retire it if we win? If they win?
That's not a bad way to... I mean, that would be the end of the timeline, right? As the idea of the timeline, that would be the end of it. So in some ways, I think that would be not the worst thing to do. The third most common thing referenced in this is our April Fool's episode. For those who don't know...
Such a stupid one.
For those who don't know, April Fool's 2 years ago. 2 years ago? I think so. I think 2 years ago. Sam and I have been trying to do April Fool's episodes basically every year since the podcast started. We've had multiple ideas that never came to fruition, but the one that we finally did and finally fully committed to was just releasing an episode as if the podcast were a Diamondbacks podcast this entire time. We changed the logo of the episode. We talked about Diamondbacks for the entire first segment of the podcast, the Diamondbacks, and we legitimately did research on the team in order to talk about the podcast or talk about the team through the lens of how we talk about sports. And I think we did a pretty good job of making it sound natural and kind of real. And I had no idea what I was saying. I just sort of interpreted
we did not
stats.
do a good job of that. Mike,
People-
famously baseball's number one hater.
People listened to it and said, actually, you sound like you know what you're talking about. And those people knew more about baseball than me. So I'm going to
Okay.
give them the benefit of the doubt there because I really have no idea. But that episode was very fun, very funny, and confused a lot of people because there was no it was all subtext. There was no this is an April Fool's episode. It's going to feel different. No, we didn't do any of that. We just started the episode as if it was a Diamondbacks podcast the entire time. And it still makes me laugh, and I'm glad we did that one. Another idea, I think I've said this on the podcast before, that we had for a April Fool's Day episode that we almost did. We had the guest booked, and then something happened that we had to pivot. Was one year we were just going to release an episode, a full hour-long episode, talking about the history of tanks in warfare.
Oh, this was early. This was early
because we were making jokes about tanking a lot on the podcast, how the Suns should just tank for their draft pick, and we were just going to release an episode with a like a historian talking about the history of tanks in warfare, and we never did it. And I still think it would have been funny. What I think would have made it funny is making it as long as possible, like talking about tanks for as long as possible, like over an hour if we could have gotten there, and that's the only way it would have been funny to me. But yeah. Other moments that we'll touch on before we call this one. Many mentions of the podcast that we've done with David, Max, and Kellen. Those seem to be the guests that come up the most frequently here, which I wonder who's been, I should have pulled stats on the episode. Who do you think is our most common guest? It's probably between David and Kellen, right? Or Max
I think
is
it's probably
twice a year.
I think it's Max. I think Max McCauley is our number one guest. I think he's the unofficial third chair of the timeline at this point.
Yeah, because twice a year. But David's probably, well, I guess there was like a year or two where David was very busy and we didn't get him on at all. So that probably put him behind. Maybe somebody will do the work for us and actually go through the episodes and count them. But Kellen, I feel like, is twice a year too, though. He has to be.
Well, what I'll give Kellen and David both a ton of credit for is like when we were streaming most often, those guys would always, like, without us even asking them to, they would just hop on and join us on those streams. So if you count all those streaming hours, then I think those guys probably take the top spot.
Yeah. The one shout out specifically, I'm reading it here. When Sam gave Kellen so much joy when Sam bet it all on Kobe Brea. It's like a father seeing his son hit a wiffle ball for the first time. Perfect moment after the miserable season that Kellen had to dutifully cover. So that is a good one. I'll just say a couple other here. The Valley Oop was mentioned. The Chris Paul trade episode, the Kevin Durant trade episode, specifically mentioning how excited you were. You did bring a lot of joy to that because I was sort of conflicted at first, and you helped me to like recenter and make it more about it being fun. The vibes after sweeping the Nuggets, that was a very fun episode, I think.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And a series we haven't even mentioned, but what a series. Very, very, very fun. The Valley Oop, I think, was an obvious one that was mentioned there. Let's see. The Josh Jackson intervention episode. This is someone who's been listening since the beginning.
This is the Hot Box and Infant episode, is it not?
Maybe. But if you remember, in the first year, this is how long the podcast has been on. In the first year, there was a lot of debate about Josh Jackson and whether or not he could be good, not to mention great. And I was sort of on the opposite side of that debate. And it got to the point where we literally had an episode where I wrote a letter to Suns fans as if we were having an intervention. And I put a lot of work into it, and it had music, and it was funny, and it was like, it's stupid. It was very stupid, don't get me wrong, but like purposely stupid. And I remember posting it, and it was still at the time where there was some level of debate about Josh Jackson. Like the debate wasn't definitive the way it is now. And the thing I remember about that moment, Sam, is we were still asking people for reviews, which, by the way, if you want to post a nice review on our podcast feed, feel free. But we were still asking people to post reviews for us at the time. And I remember someone saying, I really love this podcast. It's been great. Except for that Josh Jackson intervention. I hated that. Don't do that again. And that review always sticks out in my head. Because at the time I was like, I put so much work into that, please. Why did you have to put that in a review that's there forever now? But that was one of those things, I think, where we are on the right side of that debate. In that first year, too, we had a really long McDonough episode where we broke down every move he made, too, which I think was the type of thing that people needed at the time.
I was thinking about that one. Maybe bringing that up. Yeah. Should we do that with Brian Gregory one day.
Yeah, I think we could do that with
or Matt Ishbia. arguably.
even James Jones. We never did. I think we did do a definitive James Jones one actually, but that one's a little better because they made the NBA Finals, and then multiple references to playback, and the fun in playback. Multiple people mentioned the boo log. Nurkic putting people in the boo log, which is a word that was just made up in playback when Nurkic just had a run of a couple really good games. Nurkic had a few good games for the Suns.
Unfortunately, I don't even remember the context. Obviously, it's a playoff of gulag,
Yeah.
but why was there a B in that
That's
word?
a you word, Sam. You made that word up, so I'm not exactly.
But why did I do that? I don't even remember anymore.
Who knows? I have no idea. Why that happened, but any other and JJ Redick was another one that was mentioned. People giving us credit for the JJ Redick episode, which big thank you for that one. And yeah,
Was it a playoff of him being Bosnian?
Yeah,
like
that's probably what it is.
A Bosnian gulag is a bulag?
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Very stupid. This podcast is very fun, very informative, and also very stupid. That's the real lesson of the timeline over the years. I just want to do a couple of thank yous real quick, and I'm going to leave people out, but I just want to thank people. Thank Blue Wire. Blue Wire took a risk on us very early. We were one of the first basketball podcasts on their network very early on. And shout out, who was it that connected us with them? Oh, I'll forget it. But I'm going to forget people right away. But shout out to Blue Wire over the years. Very nice to us. It gave us an option to put ads in our podcast, which I think we just wouldn't have done if we had to do it on our own, because I don't know how to do it. I just don't think I would have done it at all. Kellen, David, Max, Gerald, I think probably the guys who have been on the podcast the most over the years. Dwayne, for all the questions he asks that we got a lot of play over, and frankly, Gambo. Gambo's probably given us more topics on the podcast than anyone else, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Over the years?
He can never retire. When Gambo retires, this podcast... No, I'm not going to say that, but...
We need somebody to take his place. They have to go by Gambo. It's like the Pope. The title actually is handed down to them. With the White Smoke, a new Gambo has been named. Maybe it'll be Kellen. Who knows? Kellen could be the guy posting cryptic tweets about the team over the years, and we'll use that.
When the smoke of the Italian meats and cheeses emanates out of
Yeah,
the Arizona
white
Sports headquarters.
The white smoke from the salami is coming from the chimneys. A new Gambo.
The new Gambo has been elected. Oh my God! Hopefully, no one at that station listens to this one. But yeah,
They're not. Well, I can tell you this: they might listen, but they're not going to be 90 minutes in listening. I think we'll be okay. Any other moments that you want to mention? Any other people that I left out that we should thank?
Well, another shout out to Blue Wire, Kevin Jones, the CEO over there, for taking a chance on us. We've been with them for 7 years, which is a long time, and no one else. Yeah, I mean, I'll forget other names if
There's one big group, and it's frankly it's the Patreon members. I think that, and I don't want to put any pressure on anyone here, but I do think that without the Patreon, this podcast probably would have ended at a certain point over the years, because frankly it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time, and the people in the Patreon have not only made it like financially possible for us to continue to do this because of the amount of work that it goes into it every year, but also there's just been a really great community that's sprung up around this podcast, which was not our intention, but it is funny now to be in the Discord thinking about our origins as Reddit mods, and we just sort of created our own Reddit basically in our Discord, but those people have been crucial to the success and the continuation of this podcast over the years. And yeah, a big thank you to those people on the podcast, the Patreon, because it's been very important to the sustainability of this podcast over the years.
Yeah, I concur. I think it's awesome, the fact that our relationship with the people in Discord has also blossomed to being outside of basketball in some respects. Like, we just talk about everything in there. I talk about movies with so many of them, obviously, and like
we have a movie podcast now.
We have our own offshoot movie podcast now, but like, getting burning spots for when I'm in Phoenix from Kai, who's in the Discord, and like, just like being able to talk about those guys with so many different things.
Restaurant recommendations
is really nice.
Yeah, like so much things. You can travel all over the world and get advice from people in that Discord because there's people from.
That's true.
Well, it is. That's another surprising thing. The amount of people that we've sort of met online from all over the world: the Philippines, Portugal, Australia. I mean, David literally visited me here in Phoenix, and he lives in Australia, Canada,
France.
Mexico, France. Yeah, we've had friends from France that we met here in person, too. Like, it is an amazing experience over the years, and I'm very grateful. Mostly I'm grateful for you, Sam, and the friendship that we've had over the course of the years. And frankly, like I said, this podcast, if anything, it's a miracle that it happened. Just two people that really didn't know each other very well started a podcast together, and somehow it is now over 500 episodes, and that's a pretty amazing thing. Thank you for all the work that you've done on this podcast over the years, Sam.
Thank you as well for all of the editing. I mean, honestly, if we're going to split up the amount of man hours that have gone into this project between the two of us, you definitely eclipse me by a lot. And so, but you've always lovingly taken on that labor, and yeah, it's been an awesome relationship. Let's keep it going.
Happy to do it. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this one. If you made it to the end, we appreciate you. We'll have a Patreon episode later this week. Maybe there will be some Suns news to talk about there, since we spent this entire time talking about ourselves.
LeBron went to the Sixers.
Let's save that for Patreon. We'll get 10 minutes
well, I have thoughts.
Good. I have thoughts too, actually. It's going to be an interesting conversation. We appreciate you all. Thank you, everyone who's listened to a podcast over the years. You guys are the best.